How's it going, my evil residents? Today we'll be taking a look at all of the enemies in Resident Evil 5 and ranking them worst to best. I'll mostly be ranking these off personal enjoyment, fun factor, game presence, and how much unfun frustration they can cause. This list is mostly subjective, though I'll get into game mechanics if I feel they're strongly relevant to the ranking. I'm not a game designer by any means, but if I feel something is well balanced or poorly executed, I'll make sure to bring it up if it affects the ranking. That said, this is my subjective list, and I'd love to hear yours down in the comments as well. This is a member requested video. If you'd like to request a video, check out my channel memberships with the join button down below. And if you like this video, huge thank you to King of Horror, one of my malevolent residents, for requesting this video. I won't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into the video.
Stay on the bike! Oh my god, it's gone!
Motorcycle Majinis suffer a lot from being basically the only enemy within the Savannah level, aka the level unanimously agreed to be worse than being tied to a chair and forced to play the opening part of RE7 12 times in a row. Not only are they the most used enemy in this level, they are only in this level and only otherwise appear in a QTE cutscene a little bit before this. All that on its own is circumstantial though, wrong place, wrong time you could say. What really makes these guys a pain in the ass is that they can throw axes and molotovs, which, if more than one decides to do so on a difficulty above amateur, you just have to take those hits. It stuns both players on the Jeep, and on harder difficulties, it does quite a lot of damage. The turret moves too slowly, at least on console, to shoot the projectiles down if they're off screen, and with how much noise there is from gunfire and the engines and the music, you can't hear any sort of sound cue that tells you if they're throwing something. It's a huge pain in the ass, and I really hope these enemies get reworked or tuned better in a potential remake, if they don't just cut this level entirely. Speaking of which, I think they'd make for a fun enemy type in regular gameplay, if they work in a way similar to like Chargers from Left 4 Dead 2. You could dodge them like Garradors or something like that, and then either shoot the driver or the gas tank to have it act as a grenade to clear enemies like the TNT Majini already are. Overall, just an actively unfun enemy to fight and deal with, though they have room for improvement if they remake this game. Crocodiles are easy to forget in this game, as they're easy to avoid and only in one small section of the game and one area of the Marshlands level. That's the main reason they're ranked low, honestly. It's a cool idea of an enemy type that is super underused. I do appreciate that you don't have to kill any to progress through, as I'm generally not a huge fan of killing animals in games unless I have to. Same could be said for a lot of the fauna in this game, though there's one big exception to this that we will get to later.
Cover all 9,000 taste bud. Aerate it. Warm it up.
Liquors are severely underbaked in this game, despite having a whole half of a level devoted to them and building up some creep factor. It lands like a Breaking Bad character in a battle of hydrofluoric acid. Like, yeah, it's cool to see them one more time, but they're back for 5 minutes just to be essentially set dressing and pose very little threat, because they're so incredibly slow that you could just run past them in their first section. In the second, you can just have your partner shoot them off the wall like they're playing Duck Hunt, and it's a complete joke. One liquor in RE2 Remake has more threat than 100 do in this game, and I'm not exaggerating whatsoever. Liquors are an easy enemy to make work in an action setting, but this game is way too set on using them nostalgically to give them the juice up they really need to be terrifying in a way that works for an action game. This is another enemy that I think would work really well in the remake, even if they just poured it over from Resident Evil 2 Remake and boost the speed of them. It'd be a huge improvement over the ones that are in this game.
Marky, who are you talking about? It's the freaking bat!
The Kipipeo, or the Flying Bat enemies, are overall fine. I mainly rank them as low because they just don't have that big of an effect on gameplay. They don't attack too often, they're loud and easy to see, so it's hard to forget about them and leave them till last, which is the only scenario they'd really grab you. I'm not sure what you could change about them to make them better, honestly, but I do think they need a little extra something to be more active presence when you fight them. As is, they're just handgun ammo consumers and not much else. Please, Capcom, I beg you, if you remake this game, don't give them a spit attack. I beg you.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! It's Spider-Man! It's Spider-Man!
Here's where the game gets into gear with its enemy types, with the Bui Quichua, or the little crawling spider guys. They serve a similar role to the Kipipeo, but are actually effective. They're out of your immediate view, but blend in a bit more with other enemies or large groups of these, so they're more effective as an enemy that attacks rarely, but is out of the way to deal with. The main thing that makes them so effective and interesting, oddly, is that their grab attack is inescapable without your partner. Your partner has to save you from them, otherwise you'll just be waiting a long while until they jump off you on your own or you're hit by an enemy. I rank them so low mainly for two reasons. One, they're spiders and spiders creep me out, and two, They're super underused in this game. You don't get to see them until Chapter 4, and after Chapter 4, they're basically not in the game anymore. If they had some more presence, I could honestly see them being in the top 10.
And how do you say so fit and skinny? So you think I'm skinny?
The Giant Magini is the first mini-boss on this list, and the main reason for that is that he just doesn't make a huge difference in the gameplay. He has no sauce. He works okay in the village square area of the tribe section, but is only used 1 or 2 times outside of that. He doesn't have any super unique attacks either. He basically just functions as a regular enemy that's taller and harder to stun. The concept works for the narrow paths of the village square, as I mentioned, but I think he really needs something to stand out with the other mini-boss enemies on the list.
You need to hang up that computer call. Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth.
The Fat Man Magini, yes, that's his actual name, is almost exactly like the Giant Magini, yes, those mean the same thing, but not quite as tanky and much more common. He spawns regularly in the beginning and end of the game and works well as a bigger enemy to apply pressure and keep you alert. If you don't either keep him stunned regularly or take care of him quickly, he will knock you on your ass. Plus, he's basically invincible while doing his attack animation, so that reinforces even more that it's best to take him out pretty quick. He's a well-balanced enemy, but much like the Giant Magini, is essentially just a regular enemy that's more spongy. There's no special way to take him out, though he does block attacks to his face, which is a neat mix-up on him specifically. Overall, a fun enemy that just needs one little extra something. The Gatling Gun Magini, or JJ if you're an RE4 fan, are exactly like they were in RE4, and are actually mandatory for progress when you see them in the last section of the game. On a first playthrough, I really think these guys are a fun threat. They're tanky, they can be stunned or taken down with trip mines with a good partner communication. However, on repeat playthroughs, they're one of the easiest bosses to stunlock, since all they really have on you is range. Stunlocking them especially sucks for their design because you're already at a safe distance from other enemies, especially if you have a sniper, to keep away from their minigun. You can just stand there and dump bullets into them with basically no issue. The arenas you fight them in make this especially easy as they have built-in cover spots, and it makes them pushovers in repeat playthroughs. It's a shame, as I remember really fearing these guys as a kid, but now they're basically no problem. The Ajule, or the dog enemies, feel like they're built for a different game. Their attacks are incredibly fast, like the Licker's jumping attack, but there's no dodge prompt. They can be hard to aim at least on console with the slow aim speed, and when their heads split open, it almost seems like they gain more health. They can be surprisingly spongy when you encounter the larger ones. They spawn in a surprising variety of sizes too. I don't know if you've noticed that, I think it's kind of neat. These enemies aren't overly difficult on their own, but depending on what other Magini they're with, they can become quite a problem, especially after they do the split head thing. On Professional, the damage they do is absolutely insane, even on their closed head leap attack. If I could just have one change made for them, just add a dodge prompt for that attack with really tight timing, and then they'll feel quite a bit more fair in larger numbers. Side note, I feel like a horrible human being when I kill one of these. Just their death animation is so freaking sad, and the noise they make, it's so sad.
We'd like to take a moment to announce all our food keeps blowing.
Okay, hear me out. The chickens are super helpful. I felt bad putting them in the top 10 as they're barely an enemy, but come on. They drop eggs. Eggs are super helpful in this game, especially if you know a certain little exploit with them to get a ton of money, and you get a ton of points from them in Mercenaries, so overall they're just incredibly helpful. Also, if you don't know, chickens do indeed attack the player when agitated, so that is why they made this list. Yes, it's a technicality. Yes, I wanted to be thorough. Did I just want to talk about the chickens? Yes. So here they are at number 11.
Young people from all over the globe are joining up to fight for the future.
I ended up placing the Military Magini in 10th because they're the most hit or miss faction as far as fun factor goes, which is the most important metric for me when playing a game. On one hand, they're more aggressive, have more variety in types with the stun rod guys, shell guys, armored guys, bulletproof shield guys, RPG guys, and assault rifle guys. There's tons of varieties of them. They really help at the end of the game feel like a fun challenge and really mix things up. However, as I briefly mentioned, they have gun enemies. They're not fun to fight, they're boring, and just turn this game into dollar store Gears of War. It totally breaks the flow and the fun. Is sometimes complete bullshit on Professional, and just overall not what I'm here for in Resident Evil, same for many others. Gun enemies can work in Resident Evil, as Resident Evil 6 proves somewhat well, but here they're a complete miss. In addition, the armored enemies can spawn covered head to toe in armor like a Call of Duty Juggernaut, which just makes them damage sponges, so if you don't have a piercing weapon, it's not a good time. You can't engage much at all with the melee mechanics with them. While they're not as bad as the gun enemies, they can still be incredibly annoying. The ones with either leg armor or helmets, they're fine. They're a fun mix-up of the gameplay because you have to change what crit spot you're going for. The ones with both, they suck a lot. Given they provide some of the most fun in the game and some of the least fun encounters in the game, I figured it would be best to place them at the bottom of the top 10, right in the middle of the list. Cephalo, the Wormhead Magini, suffer from one problem, and while it's not a big problem, it's especially annoying in mercenaries. They take forever to kill without flash grenades. If you're out of flash grenades or mercs and are relying on a kill to keep your combo going, consider it gone if one of these guys spawns. Aside from that, I think they're one of the simplest but most fun enemies in the game, as they provide a good challenge to new players and warrant the high ammo drop in this game. But for veteran players, they can basically instantly be deleted if you're ready with flash grenades or flash rounds. They do have a one-hit kill move, but they attack so slowly that it's nearly impossible to get killed by it. Nearly. They've caught me off guard with it a couple times. Overall, just a really good enemy, but I do think tuning down their health just a tad and making them a bit more aggressive would make them much more interesting to fight, much like they did in Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Shooting. No, I'm just fucking about.
Fuck's sake.
This guy, the Red Executioner Magini, who's exclusive to the prison, single-handedly makes the prison mercenaries map hard. He's huge, so he will block the narrow pathways on the map. He looks really cool, and he has a metric fuck ton of health. It takes so much damage to put this guy down that it's almost not worth it to kill him for the points. Almost. He does give you quite a few for your effort, but on lower damage characters, he will eat up all of your ammo for sure. I think he's just as good of a mercenary's bonus enemy as Super Salvador, at least for gameplay. I'll admit he's a bit lacking in personality. Him looking like he joined a metal band does help his case, but unfortunately, given his small game presence, I can only put him at number 8. I feel bad putting him any higher considering he's only on one mercenary's map. Guardians of Insanity are exclusive to Lost in Nightmares. If you didn't know already, think that they make a pretty big impression on the game if you've played Lost in Nightmares, as they serve as a mix of a stalker enemy and a Lisa Trevor type just wall that you have to run from. Even though they're clearly based on the Executioners as far as how they're like built from a game perspective, they're a super cool and underrated enemy that can catch you off guard in the puzzle section if you're not careful. I know I might be overrating these guys a bit, but I really think they're underrated, and they have awesome designs. In that section where you're running around in the water trying to crank all the things to drop those ceilings on them, that section is so fun and it's so cool thanks to these guys.
Here, it's wild. It's sweeping the nation. It's Fushigi!
The Duvalia, or the shell-headed guys, are another enemy that I never hear anyone talk about, and I've always been a huge fan of them. They're not overtly threatening, especially if you have flash grenades, but they're weak to the legs and less so to their tail, which kind of balances them out as an enemy to pull your aim away from the headshot region. Their design is also super unsettling and creepy, and very unique for the franchise. Their kill move looks like it hurts. The Juavo from Resident Evil 6 pull a lot of inspiration from these guys in how some of the mutations look, but I think it was honestly best executed here. These guys are a presence when they spawn in, and it takes a lot of focus to take them down, but they aren't such a draw on your attention that they become irritating to fight, except the armored one before the Excelibos fight. That one can go fuck itself.
Shooting. No, I'm just fucking about.
Fuck's sake.
The Executioner gets top 5 from aura alone. He is very well designed, very intimidating, and very scary as the first mini-boss enemy because, well, he's intimidating. But he's still accessible to damage and actually defeat for new players. He has a very clear stun to teach new players that they can combo melee with their partner, but he isn't such a pushover early on that he isn't intimidating. Plus, if a new player kills him, he drops a treasure. This teaches them that even if it may be easier, fighting the mini-bosses can still yield them extra money, which is super valuable information on a first run where money is super important. I ranked him so high because of that new player experience and the role he plays in it. Sure, he may be an absolute pushover later on when you're upgraded and kitted out and more experienced, but nuking him like that into oblivion is honestly fun in its own right.
I just woke up in a fucking steaming mood, yeah? Because I live in a shithole!
The Wetlands Magini are easily the most unique faction to fight in this game just due to how nimble and quick they are. They aren't really any more tanky than any of the others aside from the wooden shield guys, but they get you used to being quicker and more aware of when to land your melee attacks. If you don't, this area becomes a huge strain on your ammo, this whole middle section of the game. That's all thanks to these guys getting up not even a second after you knock them down. There isn't quite as much variety in their enemy types as you get the regular ones, the shield ones, and the crossbow ones. Their unpredictability and their speed just make them super engaging to fight without being irritating in a way like the military Magini.
So, without further ado, alright, So let's get this out onto a tray. Nice.
Sure, he may be Dr. Salvador at home, but you can't deny how cool the Chainsaw Majini is. It's simple, it's effective, but its design just does a good job of recapturing the magic that Dr. Salvador had from Resident Evil 4. It's not quite up to that level, but it's pretty close. What I love about this guy is that after you beat him on Pro, he has a chance to just get back up, which the first time I played Pro when I was a kid absolutely terrified me. He's a good raise of stakes from the Executioner, as he'll just one-hit you without fussing with the dying state, but never feels unfair. It's easy to get the hang of the damage you need to do to stun him, but it's still a good amount of damage, and if you get greedy about it, or you're not quite doing as much damage as fast as you need to, he will for sure just absolutely chop your head off, which is incredible.
Who wants to hold the tungsten cube? I do. All right, here you go.
I don't know if it's just because bugs freak me out, it probably is, but this guy's easily the scariest enemy in the entire franchise. The build up to fighting your first one, the nastiness of the arenas around where they spawn, their stink clouds are worse than SpongeBob's breath from that one episode, their kill move is absolutely brutal too, the first person POV into the endless impalement on their kill move, just god, it's horrifying. I'm not someone that finds this game remotely scary, I don't think anyone does, but these guys have never failed to, at the very least, make me want to take a shower after fighting them. The way you take them down is super fun as well. They have a sort of 3-stage weak spot that you have to clear enemies for and prioritize. However, it can still be hard to pull off if there's lots of enemies, but it's not so obnoxious or precise that it's irritating. It has a learning curve to it, and since it's consistent, it becomes muscle memory, but it can still be hard to pull off if there's a lot of enemies. It's also cool that they regrow limbs. It's a nice trick for new players that may not know how to fight it, or if veteran players just want to stun it and run past it, that's a great way to do so. It takes extra damage from acid and electric rounds in the grenade launcher too, so it's pretty consistent to go against if you're prepared. If not though, it is a super unpredictable, terrifying enemy, one of my favorites in Resident Evil history. I really think the Town Majini deserve the top spot for one simple reason. They're just fun as fuck to fight. They're simple, straightforward, have some variety with the Cephalo, Dynamite, and Molotov enemies, but they're just a solid experience if you want to hop in and just have some fun punching zombies in the face. Because of this, they're great for new players. As an early enemy, they get to learn the ropes of the game without being bogged down by too many special enemies. That said, the same thing lets a super experienced player absolutely clean house and go for a more stylish playstyle and see how to work those things in for tougher enemies, or go for super high, super good combos in Mercenaries. With the Dynamite and Molotov guys, they're as helpful as they are dangerous. You can shoot them out of their hands, and the Cephalo aren't too common, so you shouldn't run through your flash grenades too soon. The enemies stay on the ground for a good amount of time for some easy takedowns, so overall, even though they're the most basic enemy type in the game, it's hard to argue that hopping into RE5 and fighting some Town Majini on public assembly isn't an absolute blast. I think they're also a big part of what makes the early game fun and iconic, since a veteran player can get by them pretty quickly and get their S rank, but a new player won't feel totally overwhelmed and helpless by the tough enemies. Not to mention, some of their designs are just iconic. They just look great. I will always recognize these guys. I don't know if that's just because I've played this game too much, but they just have standout designs. They're really cool. They just all look awesome. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like below and hit the subscribe button to help me along to my goal of 10,000 subscribers. I would love to know what your favorite enemy type is in this game, so please let me know down in the comments your entire list if you'd like, but I just want to know what your favorite enemy type is. Also got channel memberships starting at just $1 if you'd like to support me more directly so I can put more time into making y'all these videos. There's also a link to the Discord in the description if you'd like to get to know the rest of the community. Special shout out to all of my members on screen now, and a very special shout out to my malevolent residents, Belladonna and King of Horror. Extra double special shout out to King of Horror for giving me the idea for this video and requesting it. Thank you very much for watching, and yeah, stay evil, my residents.